Today with us, we have four presenters. So we have Jimmy Hicks III, who is the Deputy Director of Responsible Gambling with the Ohio Lottery Commission. Additionally, we have Colleen Oakes, who is the Senior Program Coordinator for the Montgomery County Adams Board, along with Rebecca Lewis, who is the Prevention Coordinator for the Adams Board as well, and Vic Rabel, who is a Program Coordinator with the Adams Board, who are going to be sharing some really interesting things that they do along the lines of coalition work and how they reach out to their communities. And so we are really, really grateful for them to be here and to talk about how we can engage operators. I think that's all I want to share. I think that's all my slides. So with that being said, I'm going to stop my share and I will turn it over to the panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to get our slides pulled up here. All right. How does that look? Vic and Rebecca, I'm looking at you. Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everybody. I can no longer see all of you, but I saw that, well, I can see that there's 77 people out there, and I saw some of our coalition members in the audience. So yay, shout out to all of our Montgomery County Prevention Coalition members. Thank you so much for having us today. Today, we are talking all things prevention coalitions, and we're talking about our relationships with Type C operators when it comes to sports gaming and sports gambling. So we're very excited about that. Something that coalitions do really, really well to be successful is to create partnerships. And so we're really talking about creating those partnerships in our communities with our Type C operators. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of my lovely panel here. My name is Colleen Oakes. I am the manager for the Montgomery County Prevention Coalition. For those of you that don't know, Montgomery County is pretty much Dayton and our surrounding suburbs. And we really have some suburban, some urban, and rural areas that we cover. So we cover quite the gamut here in Montgomery County. And in that role, I basically manage all of our administrative pieces. So I manage our grant work, our funding, and then I support our amazing co-chairs and volunteers that keep the coalition running. Speaking of, I have two of them here on the panel with me. Rebecca, I'll throw it over to you first to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Colleen. Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Lewis, and I'm actually a prevention educator at the Montgomery County Educational Service Center, as well as one of the co-chairs of the Problem Gaming and Gambling Prevention Committee. And I will pass it on to Vic.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vic Rabel. I am a program coordinator at the Adams Board and also a co-chair for the Gaming and Gambling Coalition Committee. And Jimmy, you're up.
All right, thanks, Vic. My name is Jimmy Hicks. I am the Deputy Director of Responsible Gambling at the Ohio Lottery Commission. I've been with the lottery for 6 years, and so I'm really excited to step into this new role and really get into the partnership that Colleen talked about earlier.
Fantastic, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off there. Here's what you're going to expect from today's presentation. So first, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of what the Montgomery County Prevention Coalition is. For those of you that are in coalitions, run coalitions, I want to tell you a little bit about what we do so that you can see maybe the similarities, maybe some differences, to figure out how what we're going to talk about today, how it might affect you and your work wherever you are in the state. We're going to cover what Type C operators are. And then we have really a three-step model here that we're going to talk about to engage those operators. So first, we're going to talk about how do you find them? How do you know who those Type C operators are? How to conduct an environmental scan to see what's going on at those businesses. And then really how to work with them, how to create those partnerships and some things that you can do. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So first, let me go ahead and talk about what the Montgomery County Prevention Coalition is. So we are a group of about 275 members from all across Montgomery County. And in order to be a part of the coalition, you have to live, play, worship, or work in Montgomery County. So we really cover a wide span of individuals here. And everybody that's a part of the coalition serves as a volunteer. So we have a couple of us that are support staff. I'm one of the few people that's actually paid to be here, but everyone else are volunteers. And really, when we're talking about coalition work, we're doing prevention work at the community level. So at the Adamus board and at mental health boards across the state, we see a lot of school-based programming. When we get into coalition work, we're really at the community level. So here's our mission and our vision statements. Really, our role is to mobilize Montgomery County. We're preventing substance use and promoting mental health. And how do we do that? We use evidence-based prevention strategies. And I say that because everything we do is evidence-based, and I'll talk about that on my next slide. We're not just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. We know that the stuff that we're doing is based in evidence and research, and we do it with a whole lot of community collaboration. So like I mentioned before, something that makes us and other coalitions really successful are those partnerships we have in the community. You will also notice in our mission statement, it says that we work to prevent youth substance use and promote mental health. While we are focused on youth, we also recognize that healthy youth come from healthy adults. So we certainly don't disregard our adults in our work. We do a lot of work with adults in our community in order to make sure that we're protecting our youth. And then our vision, I love this. I can say that because I didn't write it, but I think it's really beautiful. Our vision is a community in which every individual lives a substance-free life with optimal mental health. So that's a little bit more about the MCPC on there. We have 8 subcommittees, and we break out our subcommittees based on substance and behavior. So we have alcohol, marijuana, and opioid subcommittees. We also have suicide prevention, self-care promotion, gaming and gambling, power-based violence prevention, and then a policy and advocacy committee that really focuses on our policy work. You are hearing from our gaming and gambling committee today, obviously. We have 2 volunteer co-chairs that lead each subcommittee and really move the work forward for each subcommittee. And each one of those has a strategic action plan. So each one is working on a 2-year set of goals, and that's what the subcommittee co-chairs are forcing them, moving us forward on. Here's a couple stats that I think people just generally enjoy. I am just finishing up my annual report for 2022, so I had these handy. In 2022, we had 3,007 Zoom meetings, 3,007 service hours and 122 Zoom meetings on the coalition. So just a little bit of fun facts about us. I mentioned before that everything that we do is based in evidence. And so all of our strategic action plans encompass what we call CADCA 7 strategies for community change. If you are on a coalition or run a coalition, you know these. Most preventionists probably know these as well. If you don't, these are great things to become familiar with. But we receive our funding through the Drug-Free Communities Grant through the CDC. And as a requirement of that, we have to show that we are doing activities that fall under each of these 7 strategies. The program that we're going to talk about today that's born out of the coalition is our Retailers Care program. And I'll actually drop that in the chat for y'all once I turn it over to Vic and Rebecca. But Retailers Care stands for Creating a Responsible Environment, and really actually hits all of these 7 strategies for community change. So we're providing information, enhancing skills, providing support, we're enhancing access, changing consequences, doing a lot of changing to physical design, and then modifying and changing policies. And that's really where our coalition work lives, is within each of these 7 strategies. And I think you're going to see some of that today. All right, so that's a little bit about us. And so now let's talk about you and what you can do, and sort of our 3 steps to how you can engage your local Type Cs. And first is, how do you find out what they are? So I'm going to turn it over to Vic for that information.
Thank you, Colleen. Okay, like Colleen said, just trying to identify who exactly is a Type Cs. What does that mean and everything like that. The best way to get that information is go directly to the Ohio Casino Control Commission website. The QR code is on the right-hand side. Scan it, and they'll be able to provide you with a list of identifying factors for the type C gaming hosting licensing. Mostly bars and taverns, but that's not, that does not include everything, because the list that we're going to talk about with the type Cs in your area, there's in Montgomery County, just a quick look at it, there's grocery stores, there's sandwich shops, there's cafes, there's bowling alleys. So there's a bunch of different options. What some of the requirements for a type C means that it has to hold a D1, D2, or D5 liquor license, has to hold a valid lottery sales agent licensure, and have a current recommendation for licensure by the lottery, as well as being a for-profit corporation or an association. Okay, so all those are on the websites through the Ohio Casino Control Commission, and it's something I encourage everybody to look into because it is very interesting. Now, to get an idea of who exactly is pre-approved for the sports gambling, go to the ohiolottery.com sports gaming host website. They have it not only in a PDF form, but also in Excel spreadsheet. You can search by location, you can search by city, zip code, all those different options are available to you. And like I said, with just looking at it real quick, there are a bunch of different options in Montgomery County. So it's a good idea to look at these to see who's been pre-approved for sports gambling. Okay. All right, Colleen, you're up.
Actually, I'll go ahead and start here, Vic. Thank you. So once you find that list of type C operators within your area, the second step is to conduct the environmental scan. So through the retailer care program, we completed these scans in hopes to reduce the amount of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery promotions around stores within Montgomery County. This effort was to help create a safer shopping experience within those areas where there were higher amounts of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery promotions occurring. So the issue that Montgomery County was facing was that in those neighborhoods where there were higher amounts of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery promotions or TAL promotions, through public health records, it was determined that in those areas, there were higher chances of health disparities, such as type 2 diabetes, asthma, infant mortality, and lower life expectancy. So therefore, the retailers care program partners with the retailers and they address the amount of TAL promotions and try to reduce the advertising and in return promote a healthier lifestyle within that community. So what the Montgomery County Prevention Coalition did was we conducted these environmental scans at all 361 carry-out alcohol retailers within the county. So we surveyed and documented the total amount of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery ads, as well as the We Card signs. And then once we collected all that data, we put that in a Google form. And here is what our environmental scan forms look like. So when we approached the retailer, we would begin scanning the exterior of the building, and we wanted to document the type of store. So is it a gas station, a corner market, drive-through? Is the store located near a church or a school? Are there lottery or gambling ads on the exterior? And if so, how many? Are there We Card signs visible on the storefront? And then as we walked in, we wanted to document the location of the kiosk, the lottery tickets, and to make sure those were within view of the cashier. So are there We Card signs as well, visible within inside the store and at the checkout? So this was some of the information that we wanted to gather in order to conduct our research. So here are some of our findings. These area codes listed were found to have an average of approximately 11 to 16 TAL ads per storefront. Fort McKinley, Shiloh, East Dayton, Old North Dayton tend to be areas of lower income or higher and higher minorities. And then as opposed to our Oakwood, Kettering, and Centerville area, if you see the difference there, these are considered our higher income and majority white communities, which have an average of 3 to 4 TAL ads on their storefront. So Colleen will now explain how Retailers Care Program can collaborate with retailers in order to create, a more positive and healthier environment for those communities who may be at higher risk.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, so from that environmental scan, that's how our Retailers Care Program was born. And what we were seeing was not really anything that was super surprising to us, although I think those signage numbers were surprising to me. We're talking about 16 signs on the exterior of a store that promoted tobacco, alcohol, and lottery. And if we're thinking about it, those are the areas that our kids are walking home from school, maybe getting a prevention program curriculum taught in school, and then walking home from school and walking past potentially 17 on one store tobacco, alcohol, and lottery signs, which was just really, really wild to me. And basically what we were seeing is just like Rebecca said, is that in our lower income and higher minority areas, we were seeing a lot more of this promotion of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery, and not so much in our higher income, majority white suburban communities. So this is how Retailers Care was born. So again, Retailers Care, creating a responsible environment. And really our goal is to reach out to local retailers in our area and provide incentives for them to eliminate signage, make sure that they're following the law in keeping some of our tobacco and alcohol paraphernalia away from our kids, and really just promote a safer shopping experience and healthier lifestyles, but also by growing their bottom line. So I'll show you a couple of the items that we have in place, the toolkit that we have in place for our retailers. But basically, here's what's in it for retailers to work with us. They can receive up to $7,200 in free advertising that we will pay for. They get free safety upgrades in their stores that are directly related to the program. So if they don't have a card scanner, we're going to give them a card scanner. Some of them had refrigerators that weren't working properly, so we've agreed to upgrade their refrigerators. There was one store that doesn't have a counter. Their counter was built out of milk cartons, and so we're going to buy them a counter that has locks, so they can put any paraphernalia in their counter and lock it. So just some free safety upgrades. And then help them grow their customer reach with media coverage and public recognition. So this is stuff that's pretty much free to us, but we want to promote these stores that are working with us. So we'll promote them on social media. We'll do press releases. It's on the Montgomery County Adamus Board website. The stores get little badges in their windows that say that they're a Retailers Care store. So really we're helping promote those retailers. And we do that by incentivizing at different levels. So there's 4 levels that stores can reach when it comes to this program. So the first is bronze, and then we have our silver. And so you can see the different values here. So $2,700 and $3,700 for bronze and silver. And I don't really want to walk each one through, but basically if they reach their bronze level, and I'll show you the checklist for that in just a second, we give them materials that they can post in the store. They get to be a part of our press release. They'll get news advertisements in Dayton Daily News, which is our biggest newspaper here in Montgomery County. And then you'll kind of see this goes up. So as they get to the silver level, they can get up to 3 months of social media advertising that's really targeted towards their specific audience. And then here we have our gold and our platinum levels as well. So we do kind of a higher press release for our gold. And then for the platinum level, they can get up to 1 month of billboard advertising. So we're kind of growing with our incentives. One thing I will say is that we're finding out from talking to these stores that they're much more interested in store upgrades than in some of these advertising incentives. So we still have that dollar amount in place for each level, but we're willing to kind of work with them to change that. So for example, the one store needed a new refrigerator. So instead of maybe giving them free billboard advertising, we're going to pay for their new refrigerator. We're okay with that. It's actually cheaper for us, makes the store safer. makes them look nicer. And so in general, just creates a better shopping experience for everybody. So those are some of the things that we offer our stores. Here's our levels checklist. And if you go to, I just gave you kind of a screenshot of it here. But if you go to the Retailers Care website, which I threw in the chat for you all, you can see the full thing. So you can really see what is involved in each of our bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And we break things down by these categories. So their signage, their product placement, and you can see in terms of lottery, we talk about where the lottery kiosk is in the store, and where the lottery products are kept within the store. Transaction, so ID scanning is certainly one of those, as well as compliance checks, and then procedures. So some examples are what happens if somebody comes in with a fake ID, what happens if it's found out that an employee does sell to somebody that's underage. So some of those procedures that are in place. So I would really encourage you to go to our website and read more about this checklist, because this is what's provided to our partner retailers in order for them to reach each of those incentive levels. And I'm happy to answer questions or share more about that. So before I turn it over to Vic, I do see a question in the chat, and I'll go ahead and answer this now. And every time I talk about this, I get the same question. So thank you. Somebody asked if the coalition pays the incentive level. So no, the coalition, for those of you that are DFC grantees, were $250,000 grantees each year. That does not cover the cost of this program. We're very lucky in Montgomery County to have our human services levy, which is where the funding comes from this program. So the coalition kind of manages it and came up with the idea for it, but we're able to grab our funds elsewhere, which I know not everybody else has the opportunity to do. All right, so that's what we do in terms of our Retailers Care program. And then once all this sports gaming legislation came about, we had to kind of pivot as a gaming and gambling committee and say, okay, what are we going to do specific to sports gambling? And so here are some of the ideas that we came up with that we think you might be able to incorporate as well. And I'll turn it over to Vic to share more about this.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. All right, so got your scans in place, you got your type Cs, you got the pre-approved list, you're looking at see what you can do to provide support to these establishments. A couple things that were brought up in the subcommittee meetings were the pizza boxes. A lot of the organizations that have type Cs are food places, sandwich shops, pizza outlets, things like that. So maybe putting a sticker on top of the pizza box saying if you have a problem gambling, call this number. Also an option is magnets for refrigerators, digital signage for TVs, table signage, stuff that they could put on, information you could put on a coaster. So something that reminds somebody that if there is a problem, this is the number you can call, but not make it so overbearing that they just don't want to participate in the establishment. So just enough to remind them. Also provide We Care signs to be hung up in the next to the lottery terminals. With sports gambling being new and going live January 1st, what other support can we provide to the type C places? Do they need any support for their staff? Do they need any trainings for their staff? Do they need resources? See if there's anything in place or anything that they're looking into. Colleen mentioned about the badge system that they have in place, as well as social advertising for responsible retailers and press releases. So all these different things that you can offer for free to the establishments, or you could get them from different organizations within Ohio. All right.
And so what we tried to do kind of with this slide here, so these are the ideas that our coalition members have come up with as ways that we want to engage our retailers from the gambling perspective. And recognizing, like I mentioned, we're lucky in Montgomery County that we have this outside funding to help provide some of these things. But if you don't, wanted to talk about some of the free things and actually pretty low cost in general, things that you can do. And for most of these, that is true. It's pretty easy to print out materials and give those to your retailers, signage to put on pizza boxes, magnets, digital signage, but also then to promote them. So when they do great work, we want to change the consequences and provide incentives, right? And so those things that are free down here are that social media advertising. Post on your coalition pages, post on your organization pages, do a press release, that's free, to give a shout out to your local organizations that are participating. So we wanted to give kind of a wide range of ideas and things that you might be able to do yourself. And I will also say our lovely lottery commission has some things that they can offer for you as well. So Jimmy's going to share a little bit more about that, but did want to put up here our contact information. And again, I threw in the chat a couple times that Retailers Care website. I will say I do not manage the Retailers Care program. We have a fantastic staff member, Tanaya Oquin Sims, here at the Adamus board that does manage that. She's taking a well-deserved vacation this week, so we let her take her vacation. But if you have more information, we'd be happy to pass you along to her, and she can share more about her work. But here is our information, as well as the coalition website is on there as well if you want to check it out. So I will pause for a second and see if there's any more questions or discussion for us.
Colleen, can I ask, so has the lottery component been something that you've already incorporated into your programs, and how has the response from the retailers been?
Yeah, well, it is already a part of the program. So as we reach out to retailers, we do the environmental scan for their lottery, for what's currently going on with their lottery work. But we've not implemented these new ideas yet. That's a 2023 goal for us as it becomes, as sports gambling becomes legalized. So that's starting to be put into place. So we'll report back on how it goes. All right, and with that, I will stop sharing. We'll still be here, so happy to answer questions as they come, but I will stop sharing and I will turn it over to Jimmy.
All right, thanks, Colleen and team. I appreciate the presentation and the handoff. I was super educational for me, and so I appreciate you going through that. I think something that jumped out to me that resonates with the Ohio Lottery, especially with our responsible gambling department, is creating that responsible environment. The acronym that you have for CARE, and that's exactly what we are trying to do at the lottery. We want to create a responsible gambling environment, and so when we get to talking about Type C locations specifically, we want to make sure that that resonates and goes to those locations as well as on our traditional side. I've had a chance to look through some of those requirements, and I think it's an excellent program because many of the things that you require of lottery are in the terms and conditions for your average retail agent. Making sure that lottery is under lock and key, that it's out of, that it's on display, but it's not on display in a way that is marketed or targeted towards children and things of that nature. And so I really applaud this program for taking that extra step. We really want to make sure that retailers out there aren't marketing or advertising lottery in any way that creates an unresponsible environment. And so those environmental scans are something that I'm a big supporter of because we want to make sure that if there is a retailer out there that is not fostering that great environment, that responsible environment, that we want to work with fellow agencies, fellow coalitions to make sure that we can get those retailers on the right path and to a responsible gaming environment. And so looking at Type C specifically, which we know that this is something huge coming down the pipe for us January 1st. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that are put in place on the lottery and that the proprietors are working on getting so that we can make sure that we maintain that responsible gaming environment in these type C locations. And so, we in the operating standards, we have marketing and responsible gaming advertisement operating standards that each of the proprietors, the 6 proprietors, have to agree to when they signed on. And we have outlined responsible gaming components in each of those standards. And so some of that is goes as far as electronic and permanent fixtures in the locations that advertise responsible gambling, that have the Ohio Problem Gambling Helpline listed, so that anybody in there can see that that is prominently on display. Again, each proprietor is coming up with marketing that will pass our desk, pass the responsible gambling desk, pass our marketing advertisement team's desk to ensure that they are not promoting any risk-free gambling. We don't want that messaging out in the field as it can be damaging. Bet slip ticket language will have access to the numbers, the help numbers on there, and as well as the velocity controls that we have in place on our traditional side will carry over to the sports gaming side. And so that $700 per day, per card limit will be enforced on sports betting as well. And so essentially there will be a $700 maximum bet that a person could place on sports betting. And so those are just a few things that I can outline to show, that we are going and taking a very stern approach to making sure that there's responsible gaming things put in place. But then I also encourage everybody here, and as we go further down the sports betting rabbit hole, that we want to make sure we partner with you. We want to make sure that if you come across a location that you feel is not fostering that responsible environment, that you reach out to your coalitions, that you reach out to the Ohio Lottery, so that we can work with you. We pride ourselves on having strong relationships with our retailer base. And so we want to make sure that if there is an offender out there, that we are able to get that communicated to us so that we can communicate it to the proprietor, or if it's an issue with the lottery and it could jeopardize their potential license, we want to make sure that we can step in as well. And then not only do we want to be made aware of the offenders, but we also want to be made aware of those that are doing this the right way. We understand that we have retailers out there who really take responsible gambling serious. And so if you have a retailer out there that is doing some really amazing things, and we want to know about that so that we can try to incorporate them into our best practices. Again, we want to make sure that everybody's pulling their weight, and so that nobody gets left behind. And so with that, I will open it up for questions. And if there's no questions, I guess, Claire, you want to field some for us?
Yeah, of course. So Jimmy, and I was going to say, if you wouldn't mind throwing your contact information in the chat, just so that way, if anybody does need to reach out to you, I think that would be great. And I was talking a little bit with Colleen, who, if nobody has any specific questions for Jimmy. Oh, actually, Jimmy, I do see a question for you. The question is, where did the $700 per card amount originate? So I'm assuming that they're meaning that if you have a credit card and you're trying to purchase lottery tickets, you can only spend $700 a week. And so I think there was some curiosity as to kind of some of the questions around, or sorry, history of that, maybe same for sales of instant win ticket kiosks. So if you can just talk a little bit about what some of that process looks like, and what that plan was in place for
Sure.
them.
So that, from my understanding, I believe that is part of the legislation that was put in surrounding VLTs when VLTs came on board, and also when we activated the credit cards on the terminals. That was an RG standard that we put in because we understand that there were people that could potentially abuse the credit card with it having direct access to a bank account or going into further debt on a credit card. So that's kind of how that originated, was when we activated the credit card PIN pads for traditional lottery, that we put these safeguards in place in order to prevent abuse.
Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
So and again, we will continue to answer questions if anybody thinks of them, but Colleen is going to take a few moments here to show you all the website and talk a little bit more about the process that they go through. And I guess while she's pulling that up, Bruce in the chat said, is it $700 a week or $100 daily? Jimmy, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. It's a weekly limit, $700 weekly limit.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited. I wasn't sure that we would have time to do this. So I'm really happy that we have a little bit more time to kind of dig deeper into retailers' care. And I'll actually walk you through our website. I am going to start with our video that is on the website. And I'm going to first make sure that my sound is shared. But if you head on to our website, Origo Branding did this for us, which I know is a great partner of PG&O, and I believe you heard from Alessandro at a webinar a couple weeks ago or last week. So they did a fantastic job creating this website for us. And so let me start with the video that kind of gives an overview of the program.
Your neighborhood wouldn't be the same without your local corner store. It's where you get what you need to start your day, where you grab a few pantry staples when you're running low, and where you see familiar faces. But that also means the messages we see there can have an impact on our community, especially our young people. High visibility and access to tobacco, alcohol, and lottery products can negatively affect the health and safety of a neighborhood. That's why Montgomery County is launching the Retailers Care Program to help stores make a change for the better. The Retailers Care Program offers resources and business incentives to local store owners so they have an opportunity to decrease the amount of tobacco, alcohol, and lottery ads displayed in their stores, and reduce in-store access to these products, especially for youth. As a result, stores can become safer for both shoppers and retailers. The best part? This program is free for retailers to join, so everyone can benefit from a healthy Montgomery County. Ready to support safer neighborhood shopping experiences?
Get involved and learn more at retailerscare.com and look for the Retailers Care Program logo at a store near you.
So we have a group of individuals from the coalition that serve kind of as the advisory board for Retailers Care, and Tanaya oversees that program and then has the advisory board there. So they really helped create, change, provide edits to that video to make it what it is today, which I think is fantastic. So as you go to our website, a couple more things that you'll see. Really, the goal of our program here is we want to decrease those tobacco, alcohol, and lottery ads. And remember that we talked about earlier, for some of our retailers, we were seeing up to 17 signs externally that were advertising tobacco, alcohol, and lottery. We want to establish safer in-store access to these products. And that means a lot of different things, and we'll take a look at the checklist a little bit in more detail. But it means, one, keeping some of the tobacco, alcohol, and lottery products not easily accessible at the front of the store. So back maybe behind a counter, definitely within eyesight of an employee, and then not within eye line of our youth. So oftentimes, maybe we'll see like one of those mini alcohol bottles that's on a lower shelf. Really easy, right in eye line of our youth. Easy for them to grab. And so we want to kind of look and think through these things that some of the retailers don't necessarily think about. And then with that, we're generating safer business places and neighborhoods. So here's a little bit more. So I showed y'all our incentive programs earlier, but just to show, and can we see this okay? Do I need to make that bigger? Okay, I see nods from our panel, so that's awesome. So at the bronze level, and I joked to Jimmy and our team on Friday when we were chatting about this, the bronze level is really just following the law. So remember when you talked about those CADCA 7 strategies for environmental change, really we're changing consequences And for us, these are good consequences. So we want to offer incentives, even if that's just for following the law. We'll still give you up to $2,700 if it makes our community safer. So with that, they get the materials that they can post in the stores saying that they're part of Retailers Care. We'll do a press release that talks about their participation. And then they get their 5 newspaper advertisements in the Dayton Daily News, as long as they're involved in the program and doing what they've said from their MOU that they've signed for us. At the silver level, if I can talk, you'll see a couple other things. So they still get their press release. This is where that 3 months of social media advertising comes into play. And then once we go to their gold level, then you start to see, again, they get a press release and then 3 months of Google advertising. So they're getting their social media advertising along with their Google. And then at the platinum level, again, they'll get a press release, an additional 3 months of social media advertising, so 6 months altogether, and then that 1 month of billboard advertising. So those are our different levels. And Lori, right now we are in the process of recruiting. Lori asks in the chat how many retailers are at each of the levels. So right now we're in the process of recruiting our stores. We have 2, I believe 3 that have signed MOUs. And so at the end of the year, then we'll kind of figure out which one has achieved at each level. And maybe we'll do a webinar next year and we'll tell you how the year went for us. But right now we're using our coalition members to get out into the community and recruit. And then here's the requirement checklist. I'll make that a little bit bigger because I know it's difficult to see. But you'll also see that I see Lori asking, would we share the MOUs? Lori, I'll have you email me. I'm not sure about that, but I'll have you reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat and I can connect you to Tanaya to see if that's something that she's willing to share. So here's some of the things that we ask. We want to take a look at that external storefront signage. So we're asking that the signage doesn't exceed 20% of the window and no advertisements on any age-restricted products on the exterior of the store. If there's any age restrictions, that those are posted. Making sure that our advertising is at least 4 feet off the ground. So again, not at eye level for our youth, right? We want to keep that up for adults. The gambling helpline needs to be posted near any lottery products that are in the store. And no advertisements of age-restricted products at point of sale, so within 10 feet of point of sale. Product placement. We want to make sure the lottery kiosks are at a place where the employees can see them. That all lottery products are kept in an area not easily accessible to customers, so we don't want them right at the door for someone to grab and walk, right? All tobacco products are stored behind the sales counter or in a locked case. That's something that we're providing for one of the stores, is that locked case in the counter. That there's no opportunity for tobacco self-service, so they can't buy any tobacco products through vending machines or self-checkout. Alcohol bottles have to be kept behind the sales counter in a locked case. The sales counter cannot have any alcohol or tobacco products. Tobacco products need to be kept behind the counter or in a locked space. And any alcohol, tobacco products need to be, again, kept up above that 4-foot line so that we're not within youth eyesight. A couple other things that you'll see here, making sure that we're scanning IDs, making sure that the store has passed all their compliance checks and not sold any age-restricted products to anyone underage. Not delivering alcohol or tobacco products through delivery services. And that was something with the pandemic that we saw happened much more often. Making sure that they're adhering to any sales hours restrictions. We have some interesting ones in Ohio. They have a procedure for dealing with fake IDs. They know how to reprimand employees that sell age restricted products. So we don't necessarily tell them what that reprimand needs to be, but they do need to have a procedure in place. They know not to sell alcohol to intoxicated customers and train their employees on that. And then a couple things for their employees, that they adopt a policy that prohibits smoking tobacco or marijuana on property. They've adopted a drug-free workplace policy. And if they want to hit that platinum level, if they have an on-site naloxone box, which we actually provide through the Montgomery County Adamus Board. Thank you. Lori says that's a great checklist. So,
Colleen, do you all work with law enforcement as you are working through with some of these retailers that may have some things that are illegally being done? Like, how do you gather that information when it comes to underage sales and things like that?
yeah, so we're able to do, it's all public record. So if a store is reprimanded for any underage sales or anything like that, we can actually go online and do a public records check and see if they've been reprimanded. So that's something that we'll continue to keep up with throughout the year. So obviously they wouldn't hit that incentive if they were to be reprimanded. We're not necessarily doing like our own checks of that. So I'm not going to go in, or I'm not going to send my coalition members in to do any checks, which people have asked before. If we would do any like secret shopper type situations. Again, we're really trying to reinforce and incentivize and not be punitive. So we have great partnerships with our Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and our local police departments that would help us out in a situation. But again, we can just kind of check to make sure that they haven't been reprimanded.
Colleen, there's also a question that was asked in regards to some of the things on the checklist and asking if there was a specific resource used to determine the distances and sign sizes.
Ooh, that is a really good question. This is an anonymous person, so I might ask that you either put in the chat who asked that. This all came about several years ago before I came on board, and that's a really good question. So let me look into that for you, and I can let you know. So whoever asked that, if you wouldn't mind, you can private message me or put your information in the chat, and I'll get back to you on that. Great question.
And sorry, while you're still talking, Colleen, my additional question is, so if there is, let's say that a group that meets the bronze level, what kind of follow-up with them is like, do you give them follow-up to be like, oh, hey, and to meet the silver level, here's some feedback that we can give you to be able to kind of bump yourself up to the next level? And my question then would be is, how often would you follow up with a retailer to see if they can move on to the next stage?
Excellent question, and something that I forgot to mention actually. So our coalition members come into play here because we're asking our coalition members to kind of be the mentors for each of the retailers. So while we have a staff member and she goes out and meets with them, she typically takes a coalition member with her when she goes. One, for a safety issue. We just like to be out in pairs in the community when we can. But also so that we have this sort of mentor relationship and they have one go-to person. So the Retailers Care Committee meets monthly, and then are asked in that monthly meeting, they'll talk about maybe like, hey, here's something to follow up with your retailers on this month. Or hey, like, here's our list of silver retailers. Let's see if we can bump them up to gold. So I would say probably monthly that follow-up happens. And we do need to have that follow-up because our retailers have so many other things going on that quick text from us or a quick email. We're finding that us popping in is the easiest way to get a hold of some of these business owners is really, I think, what keeps that relationship going.
So it sounds like this is almost like a full-time job just to keep up with everything that's happening.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why we use our volunteers, right? Tanaya is one person. This actually is not the only job that she has here at the Adamus Board. But that's why it's really great for us to have those mentor relationships, because then they can answer questions, keep up with the business owners, and then, like you said, kind of bump them up as needed.
What kind of tips would you give for somebody who is wanting to implement something like this? This is a pretty large scale activity. And I don't know a lot of communities that have a large amount of funding that's kind of waiting to be spent. But could you give any advice or tips on somebody who maybe wants to start engaging in environmental scans, and maybe some good resources to go to or some places to be able to kind of give them a starting point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I heard a couple questions there. So I'm going to address a couple things. So one is this environmental scan piece. I will say, so the environmental scan happened before I actually came onto the coalition. I still hear about it to this day, that this is what our coalition members love to do. It was pre-pandemic, I will say. So we were able to do a little bit more than you might be able to do now. But it was our coalition members got out of their offices or got out of their classrooms and walked around the community, had conversations with business owners. And so really just getting everybody together and getting some excitement. When we go out into the community, there are days where we all get together at one spot. We wear our coalition t-shirts, we go out, collect our information and come back. So that is something that's really fun that kind of gets everybody together at the same time. Again, Rebecca mentioned we used a Google form. So people can even have the Google form up on their phones. Be walking around the store, counting signage, whatever, counting we card signs and submitting that information. You also asked about how to do this at a smaller scale. There are a lot of things on here that are relatively cheap. So you don't have to tell them that you're going to give them $2,700. A press release is free if you have a communications team. If you have a Facebook page, you don't necessarily have to do sponsored posts. But even if you do, those are relatively inexpensive, depending on the audience, pretty cheap. If you want to print badges for whatever you call your program, for retailers to be able to put in their window, relatively inexpensive. So I would look through our website and try to find some of those less expensive pieces, and you can do those things. You might also be able to create a partnership and not need to offer incentives. Just show data from your environmental scan and say, hey, it's important that we do this. We hope that you come on board and follow these steps.
Fantastic. Thanks, Colleen. I appreciate all of your information.
Thank you for letting me share more. I was really worried about time, so I'm glad that we had time to do that.
Jimmy, I actually have a question for you before we kind of finish up our training, and that is that if somebody is going to start reaching out to maybe some of their lottery retailers in the area to start building a relationship, what kind of tips would you give for somebody? Because I think for a lot of us, we might be nervous to go and kind of be like, do they want me here? How do I have this conversation? How do I have them be okay with me coming and talking to them about responsible gambling? So what kind of advice would you give for somebody who's trying to maybe do some more environmental strategies around lottery products?
Excellent question. I would definitely say find the decision maker in the store. Often the person that owns the store is there in the mornings, may not be there in the afternoon. So find the decision maker, introduce yourself, introduce your organization, and just begin to tell them about what you're trying to do. Again, sometimes we can forget that, people that own the stores, they're people too, they're parents too, they're members of the community. And so they are often team players in wanting to build and foster these environments that we're seeking to create. And so I think, again, like a lot of times we can kind of see, them on the other side as the opposition, things that are, causing these things to happen. But a little education goes a long way. And they may not be aware of some of the statistics and the facts that this study provides. And so I would say introduce yourself, and a little education goes a long way.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. This has been a fantastic group. I'm so thankful for you all coming up here and sharing all the good things today that we needed to hear, I think. And I love that this is all actionable. These are all things that we can do to really have a great impact locally. And so I'm going to definitely encourage you all, if you have any questions or you want to start to implement something, anybody that has been a panelist today would be a great person to reach out to have some more conversations with. So I know that all of their contact information was already shared, but feel free to reach out to anybody at PG&O if you didn't write it down or you can't write what you wrote. Happens to me all the time. So I'm very thankful for you all. Thank you all for speaking today. I have to do one last plug for something PGNO related, and that is that I shared that next week we do have one more final sports betting webinar that is coming up, which I think that you should definitely attend because we are going to be learning about the voluntary exclusion program with Corey Brown and Susan Diamond, who are with the Casino Control Commission and the Lottery Control Commission. So I would highly encourage you to sign up for that. Additionally, we also after that, so next week is December 5th. On December 12th, from 12 to 1, we are going to do a what to expect webinar that focuses on the conference. So if this is going to be your first conference, or if you're really excited to learn about who are our speakers, who's going to be attending, what is the schedule going to look like, that's going to be coming up on Monday, December 12th from 12 to 1. And that way you can kind of learn a little bit more about what technology that you're going to need to use to jump on our virtual pre-conference and who's going to be speaking, what are the topics we're going to talk about. We are going to do a sports betting summit, so maybe get some insight on that, what that might look like and who's going to be there. So that information is in the chat from Olivia. And she's also going to put in there the evaluation for today's trading. So go ahead and fill that out. If it is not filled out, you will not get CEUs. It's always great for us to be able to provide feedback for our panelists as well. So we appreciate you taking just a few minutes to fill that out. So we will kind of stay on here just another minute if anybody has any final questions, or if you just need to kind of take that extra minute to click on the evaluation link. But thank you, Jimmy, Colleen, Rebecca, and Vic for being here. We very much appreciate it.